And here we are for a Tuesday night slash afternoon Quallen show. I'm very excited for this call. Squall, Squall. We can have lots of fun with that name because we've just had a great day here. My day has been full of really just fun conversations, just hanging. Like, oh man, I've wanted to get somewhere for a while or thought I was going away from somewhere for a bit here. And there's the feeling of there being not so much a journey anymore. And that with that, and everything's on the table. Like I'm not here to try and help myself improve at anything. I'm not here trying to help someone else improve at anything or really have any intention to this, even to this call right now. We're just here doing a call-in show. So if you are interested in being on the screen with us for 10 minutes, you can call in and we can hang out and chat. And otherwise, we're going to be answering some questions that we're going to grab from different places. And if you also have a thought about the question or our response, you can call in and talk about that. So yeehaw. And I
Well, that's
can.
definitely a good place to start. I was just going to check Patreon here, see if you have any questions. We do have one here. What do we got? We've answered so many questions. I just wanted to say thanks. Oh, well, there you go. There you go. What do you get the most joy from in your DU podcasting journey? I would have to say you. Just you, and by that I mean me. The growing recognition that there is no division between the two, and that as the idea of me fades away naturally, what I find is that we all have far more in common than I think we're prepared to admit most of the time. And just that consistent recognition of how wrong I've been about so many things that at one point I committed to because I thought they were the right way or what would make me more or gave me some degree of certainty, even when it was something that dragged me down. It's just so nice to just see all of those things just consistently being torn apart by the reality that everything is already unified.
Oh man. And like how many things you can assume like were unique to you, even feelings, and how there's almost a sense of necessity if you feel like you're up or down, feeling good or feeling bad. It's not to say that like you're feeling better than everyone, but when you're down, there can be the sense that you're feeling worse than everyone. And then it's like a lot of times the feeling better that's like the oh, I'm feeling really good about myself, sort of like the feeling of, you know, getting more than just a pat on the back, like winning something or beating someone at something. If you're feeling good because of that, you're also in this sort of conflict that puts you at odds with things because you're doing it based on your perception of how you're doing relative to someone else. And so without, oh man, hold on. There was a point I was making about not being built up or torn down, and then it was going somewhere else, and like, all right, it'll make a roundabout way to back to me, and I do see that we have our first caller in the show right
We
now,
do,
so it's
because of
perfect
course
timing.
she knows the secret link. Um, as such, we're going to let Amanda in. Amanda is a co-host on Dualistic Unity and has been since the beginning of season 6. Of course, she's been a part of Dualistic Unity since the very beginning. So we're excited to have her here with us today. For anybody else, if you would like to jump into the queue, dualisticunity.com/ live. You will find the forum there as well as the terms that you agree to and that this is a podcast. And then you'll go into the queue and we'll let you in for, again, 10 minutes. So do remember that. Try to keep what you want to say down to 10 minutes. And I'm talking to one person specifically here because I know there's a lot that they want to say, but we can't give you over the 10 minutes as it wouldn't be fair to everybody else, right? It's just kind of how it goes. But if you want to jump into free group, you can definitely do that. That said, I'll stop taking up Amanda's time. We haven't started the timer yet. And say, hey, Amanda, welcome. DU Real has been fucking awesome lately. DU Real, by the way, is Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Mhm. Well, thanks for having me. I'm definitely was loving the DU social. I was definitely having some fun watching the show, and it's just and I can empathize with a lot of it because, I very much embody that mindset of I need to prove a point. I need to defend myself. I need to convince, someone else, and really, I was, at least from my perspective, I was just trying to convince myself first, and last. And everyone else being convinced was just a validation of me convincing myself that I was on the right path, that I was making the right point, that I was doing something with my life. And what I was doing with it was spending a lot of energy running in circles and then wondering why I was always fucking tired.
And that assumption that that you need to convince someone of what you're doing, like you start thinking that you're doing the right thing, but then at the same time, in order to validate that perspective, you need someone else to be doing it. Because
Yeah.
if it needs to be the right thing, you need someone else almost like involved in it. And so there's going to be on top of you just living, like the need to convince someone else. And there's going to be like energy given to that. But like that's a way to live your life is convincing. And I am absolutely have been many times in the same boat with like that pull to convince. And it's like, why am I trying to convince someone of something? And who am I trying to convince? And who outside of myself just trying to feel better about the things that I'm doing because maybe there isn't a ton of faith in myself to just do that, to just make that decision and not need, the external validation. Because as soon as you're looked for it for, a pat on the back, you're going to fear it, not being a pat on the back, like some other fisherman. So you're going to hope for it, but just hope for the one that you want. You're going to hope for the response that you want. You're going to hope that, someone doesn't judge you for it or that you are able to convince them. Because if you can't, then it means something about you. And so you're always in this sort of back and forth of either desiring to do something or being afraid of doing that thing and not going in the way that you were hoping for it to.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely didn't like the realization of nobody really cares about my opinion in the way that I want them to. No one is losing sleep because they don't agree with me. No one is like, no one is living or dying for my opinion. And that crushed me because I was living and dying for my opinion. I was dying on these hills. I was defending it to the last effort. I was spending my free time doing research. I was spending my free time thinking about potential arguments so that I could think about the potential responses that they would have so that I would have a counterpoint to their hypothetical points. And then I would just go through all of these hypothetical debates in my head. And I was wondering why I wasn't in a surplus of conversations with people. It's because I wasn't talking with people. I was talking at people. I was trying to prove a point. I was trying to prove my value. I was trying to validate myself, and I was trying to validate myself in a place that put me in a superior, you know, holier than thou kind of perspective or energy or mindset. It was like I wanted to be the most right. I wanted to be the most sure. I wanted to be the most certain. And there is no certainty. And so when I was watching Mr. Naked Insecurity, and I'm watching him, you know, run around and run in these circles, and I'm like, oh man, I do not miss that. Like, as much as I empathize with it, I do not miss that. And I purposefully said the wrong handle because that's all I saw. You know, you know, they're sharing a perspective, but all I'm seeing is an insecurity, and it's one that I am very familiar with. And so, you know, I don't feel, and I, you know, and I love that I did that on purpose, because I'm just like, oh, you poor thing, I'm not agreeing with you. How will you go on the same way I did, by letting it go? Because you don't have to hold on to a point. You don't have to prove anything, because even if you think you make a convincing case, that doesn't prove anything. That doesn't make uncertainty uncertain, because we've agreed on a concept, because we've agreed to be on a particular side of a concept. It doesn't prove anything. And so you're just running in a circle, and that's all you're accomplishing. It's just running in that circle. And then you look around and you wonder, why are you the only one in that circle? And it's because you made it, and you're the only one that keeps running in that circle. And eventually, you know, at least for me, I got tired of it, and I just was like, I've had enough of proving my point. It's not worth it in the way that I thought that it was, because even when I was able to quote unquote convince other people, it still never got rid of the insecurity that was driving the need to prove a point to begin with.
Well fucking said. Because, like, again, you convince one person and then you come across someone else. And you're gonna, or we then gotta convince them, and then you come across someone else. And it's like, this is like, there's an X factor here. There's an X factor. Because, like, not everyone's gonna have something that validates your own perspective of yourself. Not everyone's gonna, like, it's impossible for that to be the case. Absolutely impossible. But if you think that, you know, doing it is the thing, it's like there's going to be a point, and it's like no one can even do something in response one way or the other to do anything for you. It's just like continuing to kick down the responsibility of what you're going through and what you're dealing with and what you're still not willing to let go of, there just being a process. And so you couldn't even reconcile with someone saying, like, no, there's a process, sure, but it's not into and away from anything in this final perspective. But yeah, there's yeah, that's what I got.
That's awesome. Hey Amanda. So since you seem to be free and are technically, you know, a big part of the fucking team, any chance you got time to stick around for the rest of the episode?
Yeah, I'd be happy to join. You know, I've
Awesome.
got a great seat for the show. Bring it on.
That's great. I really appreciate that. No, it's really nice to have you here for sure. I will continue on with the rest of your time, of course, but we do have somebody else in the queue. I do want to remind everybody out there, if you'd like to join the call-in show, jump in there now. You can join at dualistiCunity.com/live, and that takes you to not just a link that you can use for Zoom, but also a phone number if you'd prefer to call in that way. So jump in there now, because it usually starts to get busy towards the end of the show, and we would love to answer your questions or talk to you early on if you would like to join us. So that said, we'll continue on.
Anarchy commences. No, I was kidding.
To the
I,
death.
that's right. That's right. Bring it on. Bring it on. I love my imagination, and I appreciate it so much more, that I was able to see that, like, everything comes out of my imagination, not just the things that I think are just imaginary, not just the things that I think are a dream or a fantasy or a desire or an expectation. I, out of my imagination comes my entire life. Out of my imagination comes my entire experience, because, you know, my imagination is driven by my perspective. It's shaped by my perceptions. And so it seems like there isn't anything that doesn't come out of the imagination. other than like my physical body, that's the part that we didn't imagine. But for everything else, that's not a physical part of my experience. It feels like it's all a product of some part of my imagination. And that makes it feel like it's less of a fact and more of just another option or another consideration.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's almost like the balance between seeing everything for what it is. Oh, I'm getting ignore for a day. I got a notification that my storage is really, really low, and so this is me metaphorically kicking the can down the
You
road.
speak of my woes as well, sir. I have also struggled against the beast of storage.
And my little bitch Mac too. It's
Well, and that's a big part of the gaming thing, though, right? Because now that we're installing games and whatnot, all of a sudden you've got like 30 plus gigs just taken up by StarCraft. Uh, Quick announcement to everybody who doesn't know, we're now gaming. We do fucking streaming games now. It's been a lot of fun. We've been doing it for a little bit over a week ish. I think it might be a week today. And we've been playing StarCraft. I was playing some Curse of Monkey Island, which is dope, puzzle solving game, as well as a game called Kakarot, which is based on the Dragon Ball Z story. Hell of an immersive game, visually spectacular. And it's been a lot of fun to just hang out with people while they, chill in the comment section and I play these games or we play these games. The StarCraft thing is something that the three of us have been playing a lot of in the last week, and we've really gotten quite good at it. We're still developing our game, but we're up to like the very hard AI at this point, so that's a lot of fun. But if you are interested in games, or if you're not interested in games and you want to learn why they're so fucking valuable, just because it's an expression of yourself like anything else, check us out, twitch.tv/dualistic unity. You can subscribe if you don't want to see ads, or you can just follow us and then you'll see ads from time to time, and that helps us advertise the podcast. So that said, our guest just left the queue. Um, Unfortunately, hopefully he'll be back. But that was the announcements for the day. With any luck, he will come back to the queue in a moment. I hope he didn't lose patience, because again, we do have to make the announcements,
We'll see. We'll certainly see. No matter what, we are open to having a discussion. I'm not really open to getting lectured at or hearing a speech on a soapbox, but I am absolutely open to having a discussion about anything.
But yeah, we're just here. We're just here chatting, and like so much of it too is just like a resonance sort of, or a willingness to be honest with yourself and like your own experience and your own stuff, and that sort of like there's more of an ease to things, at least moment to moment, when you're not, you know, assuming that something about yourself or a way of being or a way of acting or a way that anyone else is being or acting, there's not so much an assumption that there could be something that could be wrong, like that could happen that's wrong, something expressed, something shared, something done. Because like that, it's not that things don't keep playing out, but like just that being there almost creates enough hesitation that it does play out in a way. And like it's not to say if that's not there that it doesn't happen in that way. But yeah, I guess when everything's on the table, I don't even know. It's just like there's a lot more relaxation. And because you're not trying to convince yourself of anything even, and therefore not trying to convince someone else, or needing that, or needing someone else to be convinced of anything, you know?
Mhm. I or not love, but I appreciate the words "I don't know" so much more now. Like I used to, oh my God, I used to hate those words. I don't know. And if somebody would give me that answer, oh, I detested it. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, You're supposed to know. You're an adult. There's resources, there's encyclopedias, there's libraries, there's centuries of research that we can build off of. How do we not know? And now when somebody asks me something, I'm like, I just don't know. And I love giving that response now because it feels like it opens up, or not opens up, it feels like I am open to way more possibilities. It's not that something else opens up to me, is that I open up to more possibilities, more options, more perspectives. I was chatting with Jackie, and she brought up, like, like, we're constantly getting out of our comfort zone, and I'm like, I feel like I don't really have to give effort to get out of my comfort zone. I feel like I put most of my effort to go back to my comfort zone. So if I just sit the fuck down and just not do anything, this uncomfortable zone is everything. It's really me that actively works to create, live in, and return to my comfort zone. I don't actually think that I have to work to go out of that comfort zone. I feel like all the work goes to staying in it.
For sure. Yeah. Because like there has to be a lot of attention paid to what you want and like your preferences. And if you're not willing to look at where those are coming from, like if you're just taking them for what they are instead of being like, wait a second, why exactly, you know, do I want this? Do I think that it's gonna make me more? Do I think it's gonna play out better? Like how much outside of myself am I factoring in? Like how much outside of like the reality of my experience right now am I playing into this decision or this action? Because like as much as we feel like there's larger actions that we take, it's like there's a lot of tiny actions we take all the time. And like we're always taking actions and doing things and expressing and reflecting ourself based on the ways that we act, the things that we which are based on the things that we focus on, which then in choosing things or making decisions, there's, a reflection in that. And so we're always kind of oscillating between those, but that's like it's not just for larger situations, like it's for anything. And it really can be like moment to moment. And there's not something because you can quickly think, oh, I'm improving something by doing this instead of it just being an option and just like even choosing a different way to walk in the morning. It's like it's not for a reason, just because it's on the table and it's unexplored.
Well
Wow.
said. I just want to cut in very briefly. I'll pass it back to Amanda. I just want to give a shout out to the initial caller because I know you've been saying you want a platform, that you want an opportunity to discuss your point of view. We're giving you that. Absolutely. Feel free to come on. This is the time to do it. Because if you don't do it now, and then later on, you're like, you're not giving me a chance to talk about this, I'm not going to take it seriously. This is your chance. It's totally free. There's no kind of paywall. There's nothing. There's nothing in your way to a conversation with me right now. Come on. Because honestly, I want you to get this off your chest. I really do. And I want you to understand that I really do know where you're coming from. I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm just saying something you don't like. And that's caused you to react to me in a certain way. And you're still reacting to me, right? And as much as you're angry with me, you won't leave me the fuck alone. So why don't you just come on the show and we'll have a chat and all the idea of me can hopefully get dissolved and then we can just move on with our day.
Yes, definitely happen. We're very, very excited to chat. And anyone else? We got a number of people who are in here. Feel free to tune in, call in, hop in. And you don't even have to bring up anything that has to do with anything that's been discussed at all. You can bring up anything you want. So, but until then, Ray, I really like that shirt you got there. Bite me. Right in your face. Right in your
Yeah,
face.
it's a nice shirt, and it's got a crocodile on it, so it's not totally without context. It's not just me walking around and going, go fuck yourself, because that's not really it. But it's a clever kind of, like bite me, because it's an alligator. Though on the other hand, am I saying that to the alligator, or is the alligator saying that to me, or am I saying that to someone else? So there's a lot to it. It's got multiple layers. You know what I'm saying? But I like it a lot. Oh, we got someone in the queue, and I'm hoping that it was our initial caller. Really appreciate them coming back. They said on the Discord that their phone died. So this will be a good conversation. It's nice to have them here.
Right.
And this would be Justin. Justin, when he submitted his form about what he'd like to talk about, said non-duality, love, and healing. So this is a good conversation.
Hey, can you hear me?
Justin, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes.
We can.
Awesome. Do I have to turn on the video or?
No, not necessarily. You don't have to by any means. You can if you'd like to, but
Okay.
you don't have to.
Okay. I might later. I just get nervous about public speaking and speaking in general. But um, yeah, I mean, wow, we've got a lot to talk about here because I feel like a lot of what I've been saying has been simplified down into certain perceptions that are very easy to point fingers at, because you run a channel, you get a lot of comments, and you have to kind of deal with that, as you say, responsibility of, uh, how am I going to react to this person on my platform saying these things? Here's the nervousness. I forgot where I was going. Oh my gosh. But if you can start saying something, I will pretty easily come back at you there. Wait, I can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure where to start that.
Okay.
Aside from welcome to the show,
Thank you.
aside from that, you had a long comment section going before the show.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd like to start there.
All right. So, well, it first started with the aliens thing. Are talking about aliens or spirituality?
Wherever
Whatever
you'd
you
like to
like to,
start.
yeah.
All right. I'll start with spirituality. So, this idea of separation is a distortion of truth. It's not a thing apart from truth, but it is the opposite of truth in the sense that it is a complete obscuration of reality. So that's the ego, and that's the thought of separation. I'm not saying it's something that we have to fix, but we have to realize that it's not actually running things, and that this is the healing I'm talking about. And uh, yeah, um, the misrepresentation, I guess, is you're saying that I'm denying reality when in actuality, I'm talking about that. And I'm talking about the suffering that you're talking about. I'm not saying that I don't suffer, but we have to talk about it to really see what we're doing here. We have to see that we're holding on to those thoughts willingly, actively for separation, hatred, and fear. And even if I feel those feelings, suffering, hatred, or fear, in these conversations at all, that doesn't disregard what I'm saying. It just it doesn't conflict with what I'm saying. That's the world of space and time that we see ourselves in. That's bodies. That's how we're going to interact with conflict. That's the medium which we appear to exist within here. And I'm saying that reality isn't any of that. So because we're not just going to immediately go back to reality, there has to be some kind of transition for our minds to go from one point to the next. It's not that salvation is a real activity that's occurring. Salvation is an undoing of a mistaken thought system. And this is done all the time automatically in this interlocking web of forgiveness forgiveness of thoughts of separation and fear. So that's kind of the gist of what I've been trying to say. But it's not easy, and I don't blame you at all. You know, I'm sitting here wanting to be mad at you, but the only reason why I get mad at you is because those are the thoughts that I have about myself, visualized externally as you, just as I am thoughts that you might have visualized externally as me. So that's why that we have this conflict and this tension here, is because it's actually not one-sided at all. It's dual-sided, you know? And again, this is duality. I'm not saying duality is real, but this is the experience of duality and what we have to work from. And if it's not real, there is something to do. There is work to be done, but it's just not what we think it is. It's not guilt. It's forgiveness. I think I'm done there.
That's really interesting.
I appreciate it.
Specifically the part that you were going towards in the end. But I have a question for you, actually.
Yeah.
What do you consider to be reality then? Would
Reality
that
is a
include,
pure awareness. Oh, sorry.
would that
Yeah.
include the physical existence that we
No,
have going on right now?
no, it wouldn't, because physical existence is a distortion of the experience I'm having right now. For example, when I touch a doorknob, my experience isn't actually touching that doorknob. That's just what I think the experience is. That's my interpretation of the experience.
So
So
you don't
what's
think that without the interpretation of the experience being so attached
right?
to, that the experience itself wouldn't still exist?
I think we're attached to a certain interpretation of experience because
No,
of
I get that.
hidden
I
beliefs.
get that. So,
Okay.
but you're saying you're attached to the perception of the experience. What I'm saying is that the experience itself exists regardless of your perception of it.
Right. Because the
So,
experience is part of something more fundamental. It's part of what's real. That's why it's part of reality.
so
And
physical existence is part of reality.
No, no. Physical existence is not the same as experience itself. I'm not saying physical experience isn't experience. I'm saying experience as the concept does not equal physical existence. Physical existence
so
is an occurrence within experience. It's a sensation.
yeah, but
So,
so like
so
where does one happen and versus the other?
well, one is just it just is. You know, there's the
Are they
wholeness
both
of
not here?
reality. It's not here in the sense that we're thinking of a place that doesn't exist. So if we were to say it's here, that would be a misdirection. But yes, the truth is all around us. It is you. It's all there is. So it's one of those things where you have to see how an illusion is nothing. An illusion isn't something, it's nothing. That's why it's an illusion.
So
So
that said,
if I'm,
do you
yeah,
not think that the perceived path that you
yeah,
see from here to reality is not the product of that very illusion you're saying you're detaching from?
I think we have very similar views on that in the sense that letting go is, you know, this whole spiel. Like this is about surrendering and letting go to the experience. But the idea is when you really let go, you're going to face all of the defensive layers that you have that's holding up this apparent reality.
It sounds like an assumption,
It's not an assumption for me because I've experienced this, but
but
it
it sounds
might
like an assumption
sound
that
like
it's
an
always
assumption.
going to be that. Like
Well,
you're talking
no,
about an
because
experience that happens in numerous different ways, as with all different experiences. And so while it might be
any
perceived as an
any
arduous journey at first, it doesn't have to be. That's very
well, you're
much
projecting
largely.
eternity onto dualism. Dualism by definition is not eternity.
Where
It's
do you think eternity
temporal.
happens outside of now?
Eternity is now, and this is not now. This is duality. This is the delusion.
No, this is now with the perception of duality for sure, but it's still now.
You're in now, but you don't see
No,
yourself
I
as you
am
are.
now.
Yeah, you are now, but you don't see yourself as now. You see
Of course
yourself
I do.
as Ray.
No, I don't. See, that's the thing. You project that
No,
onto me in the same way
well,
that you project the idea that
well,
I'm on some kind of path. But
I'm not talking on the same personal level. I'm not like saying, "Oh, you, Ray, have these thoughts of separation that you're personally maintaining." No, I'm saying this is like a part of a more fundamental subconscious system that we're all attached to and learning to undo.
so, and I'd just like to make this clear. You're talking
Yeah,
about yourself. Like
I
you're
know.
projecting that onto everyone else, but you're talking
No,
about yourself.
No, I know I'm talking about myself, but there's no one but myself. And I'm saying that this is a
But
universal
then why do you
self
keep saying
problem
we all are dealing with this? I mean, it's a
because we is
spectrum
a
of
way to
dealing with it.
refer to myself as the universal aspect. Like, because a lot of people, when I say I, they'll think I'm just talking about the image Justin. So I have
No,
to
but you're
think
talking
about
about
that.
the illusion rather than the
Right. That's,
reality.
hey, we're on the same page there. I don't know. Like,
No, no,
I've
that's what I'm
talked about
saying
that
though, is
just
that
now.
you seem to be immersed in still talking about yourself within the illusion,
No, I'm
despite
just the
knowing it's
opposite.
not part of the reality.
I'm just trying to explain how I can refer to myself as an image while not intellectually making it real. Because this is still a valid experience I'm having, even though I can intellectually say that it's not real. And that's what you were kind of saying. I wasn't saying that you were intellectually thinking that Ray is yourself, but intellectually, emotionally, that is your experience. And that is why you suffer. And everyone's experiencing that as bodies. Because if we appear to be a body, it's kind of just it's like it shows that we've accepted the thought system of separation.
So,
And we are
and I
all
think
one
this is
mind.
my question. Do you think that there's a point you're going to get to where so
I think I've
duality
already
just
made my point. I'm just
ceases
kind of,
to be?
I'm here now. I've made
I'm
my point.
asking, is that it? Is that there's a place where duality ceases to be, that there's no more suffering and therefore no more joy?
Yes, that's healing.
That's
And it's
healing.
inevitable. Yes.
How is that healing? The rejection
Be-
of that sounds like a lack of healing. Like
no,
the judgment of that sounds like a lack of
here's
healing.
the thing.
The
What
running from
the
that
the
sounds like a lack
the
of
thought
healing.
systems of separation and guilt, even though I'm the one talking about it, we're all participating in it. So even though I'm not defending that thought system, I'm observing our participating in it. So that's what you're doing. It's not a personal thing.
But
It's
you're
just
assuming that I'm going through regret and guilt.
no, you're assuming that about me.
No, you just said that.
No, I said that in a universal aspect, as in
That
the
includes
one
me.
mind, the one ego mind. Yeah, but you took it personally when it wasn't meant that way.
It's just such an interesting thing. Like you seem very focused on the suffering end of this
Well,
because you're
you're
suffering.
taking it. Understand that that part, that resistance you have towards me talking about suffering is you.
I'm
That's not
not
me.
resisting you talking about suffering. That's why you're here on the show.
Well, you've blocked me several times,
I
and
blocked you because
you've
you won't respect
basically
the fact that
forced
I
me.
don't need you to play savior in the direct messages. You can talk to me publicly like everybody
I
else.
don't think I'm playing savior as much as I'm just sharing my thoughts. I'm not trying to convince you. All I've been trying to do is accurately represent my thoughts to your
If you weren't
audience.
trying to convince me, you wouldn't continue to pound on this. You wouldn't be here looking to defend your point of
Why
view.
not? If it's my passion, why not? Who are you to tell me?
Well, it's great. And if it's your passion, you can do that with sensitivity, can you not? Like if I ask you specifically to stop
I could do it
messaging me
with
in the
whatever I
direct
prefer.
messages,
And this is what I prefer.
it's so you prefer to perpetuate conflict by showing an insensitive to everything else that is you, simply so you can focus on the end of your journey and have tunnel vision to everything else.
Your perspective is that I'm perpetuating conflict. But from my perspective, I'm undoing the belief of conflict.
You're undoing the belief of conflict by pushing someone to a point where they have no choice but to block you to remind you that they don't owe you anything.
I'm sorry you felt the need to block me. I asked multiple times if you wanted me to just not talk to you.
And I replied multiple times
Right.
that you should stop, and then
And
you
and
continued
I
to do
did.
so. By the way,
No,
the
I did
dialogue of
stop.
that is on the community Discord. You're welcome to check it
No,
out.
I'm sure you have screenshots outside of context, but here's
I
the
know it's
thing.
the whole
It
thing. It's
began
what start to finish,
it
whole thing,
hey,
absolutely within context.
that's within the DM context. But here's the thing. You're also messaging me publicly in comments and
No,
replying
I'm
to my comments
replying
with
to your
videos. Let
comments.
me talk.
I
Let me
never
talk.
came to you,
Let
sir.
me talk. So you're replying to me publicly with videos, even though I've already stopped in the DMs. So when I communicate to you in the DMs again, trying to talk about what you brought up again privately, you're making it seem like I've come back and
Yeah,
that you
because you
weren't the
did.
one
You
who
could have
responded
continued
to me.
responding to me publicly, but you decided to go back to the private comments where I told you I
Yes,
didn't want to talk
because
to you. That's why I
he,
addressed you
well,
publicly.
okay, let's address that. What's the difference between us conversating in the public comments and us just being private
Sure.
DM.
Here's a
chat.
question for you. What makes you think you're entitled to my private time?
I don't.
Apparently you do. Otherwise, this wouldn't be
No, I
bothering you
don't.
so much. So I'm asking
I
you
don't.
to not message me privately. Why does that bother you so much?
If you had left it at please don't message me, and you
And I did
never,
numerous
no, you
times.
didn't. You did that in the
Again,
DMs,
anybody
but
who's
then
wondering can
after,
check out the community
listen to me.
Discord. Oh, buddy,
You
I
said
can
that in
mute
the
you if you'd like to
DMs.
keep talking over me.
You were talking over me in the DMs. Okay. I said I would stop messaging you, and I did.
Mhm.
But
And
then
then you
you
messaged me
replied.
again. No, I
But then you
replied to your
replied.
public comment.
You're not going to let me say this, are you?
No, because what you're saying is that for me to reply to you publicly demands that you comment on that you reply to me
No, but it's a
privately.
sign that you were continuing the conversation.
Publicly, correct. That doesn't mean I want to take you home just because I'm talking to you publicly.
Being in your DMs is not taking you home. It's just having a
No, it is.
conversation
It's taking you
outside of
into
the
my
public eye.
private life
All right.
where I am no
I'm going to
longer
end the
having a
conversation
public
here.
Discord. I
I've said
doubt it
everything
very much. I'm
productive.
sure I'll hear from you
I,
again.
I'm sure. I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate.
Wow. This is very interesting just to watch up close because I'm listening and we're talking about this denial of reality, and reality is the pure awareness. And so I guess we're talking about the pure awareness that isn't the physical existence, because that's separate. And salvation is the undoing of a mistaken thought system by replacing that thought system with something that recognizes the pure awareness. And so when you're talking about that's why there's tension and conflict. And I'm like, I only feel tension and conflict coming from our naked insecurities.
For context, listener, Justin has left the chat.
And the amount of assumptions too, like the use of the use of this conflict that we're having right now. It's like you keep saying you keep putting yourself at conflict, also assuming a lot about what everyone else is going through, and almost demanding that it must be the case, and just the amount of entitlement expressed in, like, for some reason you owe him time, like you owe him your time, and like, because you should, and stop talking over me and respond to your private DMs. And you indicated, because you responded to me in public, that then I want to that you have to respond in private. It's like there's nothing that says that anywhere. And this like unity that he's talking about, like, what about that? It's like everything that he's expressing was contradicting. It was like trying to perpetuate that, like, this is duality and we have to overcome it, and it's not unity, because then it's like there's a right way. Like, you deserve to give me time and attention, or I deserve your time and attention. I expect your time and attention. It's like all these assumptions keep
I'm
getting
healing
forward.
so much that I don't have to pay any attention to the feedback that you are deliberately giving me. That's how much I'm healing. That I can be insensitive to the response of those I'm rippling against and communicating with. That's the most interesting thing about this to me, is the fact that I'm telling him, I don't want you to message me publicly. It's really not complicated, right? But because he has a point to make and doesn't want to do it publicly, then I'm unreasonable because I don't want to give him my private time. And again, anybody who knows me, who's been on Patreon or talked to me from the retreat, I don't mind giving up my time. It's not really my time. I enjoy doing it. But when you're asking me to basically just sit and be witness to you saying that you're going to save me, that the way that you see things is the way that I must see things, because if not, I'm not healing. That's exactly what that was. It's like, if you're not willing to admit that you're fixing people and doing good things, then you are not truly healing. You're arrogant. By the end of it, he called me an asshole, which was great, because that's definitely part of that unifying healing vibe that he's sending off, right? And it's just that it's like, I understand what he's saying, you know, like we can all come together if we let go of our ego, but needing to drive that into somebody else is your ego, right? Even needing to, you know, get rid of your ego is your fucking ego. At the end of the day, you know, it's still you driving it. And what he was saying there is so fucking close to the truth, in that there is a reality and then there is the illusion. But the illusion superimposes the reality. That's why they're so fucking hard to tell apart. To him, it's a very clear distinction. There's reality, wherein there is no suffering, no duality whatsoever, and then there's the rest of everything else, which is hell. Sounds like a very Christian belief, doesn't it? Under a different name, but definitely a Christian belief.
Yeah. You know, he was saying like, you know, we have to see that we're holding on to the denial of reality. And it's like, we don't have to do anything. Like, like we don't like, I don't even have to get through the whole sentence. I could stop at the we don't have to. That's it. I don't have to do anything. And it was so funny because he was so bothered when you were like, I forget what you said, but he was like, well, I can respond however I prefer, and I can block you how I prefer. Goodbye. Click. I'm sorry.
No, that's unreasonable.
I'm expressing my preference. Oh, but only your preferences can are, you know, should be experienced. Only your preferences should be prioritized. Oh, okay. So what you're telling me is that I live in your world, and what I'm telling you is to fuck off. And I don't have to say it politely. I don't have to say it nicely. I don't have to make you feel better when all you're doing is showing me how uncomfortable you're feeling. You can feel it, you know. It's we have to do this. I was like, we don't have to do anything. And when I stopped telling myself that I had to do something, I was able to just appreciate the fullness of this experience, which includes the illusion. Like I appreciate the fullness of it, because when there is no suffering, in my mind, there is also no enthusiasm. There is also no joy, because one emotion doesn't live within the vacuum of itself. So if there is no suffering and no pain and no negativity, then there's also no positivity. There's no joy. There's no enthusiasm. There's no, you know, passion. And I'm like, I think you're confusing passion with force. You know, it's not that you're a passionate individual, it's that you're a forceful individual. You're trying to force your opinions on others, and you're disguising that as a passion. And if that's what passion is, I'd rather a passionless life. If passion is the way that you experience it, I would rather a passionless life. And I bet you I'd have more fun doing it.
You see, that's the whole thing, is that, you know, this approach to reality really does demand that you get other people to agree with you. And as you go through reality trying to force that shit on people, people push away. Right? People push away, and then all of a sudden you start going, you know, I have anxiety problems. Because he even said, like, I was anxious before coming on here. Yeah, because you know what you're about to try and do. Right? Like, you understand that you're coming in this with an intention to try and validate yourself, and it's likely not going to work out well. Like, there was a reason that you felt anxious, you know, and it was everything to do with the investment that you had walking into it. Because if you were invested in that end result, then there was a fear that you wouldn't get it. And that is absolutely the best thing for you, to not get it. So that way one day you may just let it go and live for you, right? As opposed to holding on to this idea of you and then claiming that it's your way out. I get it. And again, I understand what you're saying, but this idea of the path, you know, this idea of this place where you're not suffering, where there's no duality, is incredibly dualistic. Like, it really is. You're separating reality from reality. And I will say this one more time, that while everything is one, it cannot be experienced like that. Because there is no experience without an experiencer. And an experiencer requires an experienced, which means there's immediately duality. You're trying to escape something that is a gift. You're squandering your time in the garden because you're looking around at all of the weeds rather than just clearing them out.
And trying to turn all the weeds into something that you think they should be instead of just experiencing it, instead of just being there. You're trying to shift and change things and components of your environment, or think you have some sort of control over it. And once things get to a certain point, then what? Then you just feel good forever? Like, is that what we're trying to do? Just feel good forever, not realizing that like it is informed. It's informed by everything that we do and everything that we go through. And so this idea that there's some spot that we get to that's like a cessation of everything. And he even said, when you're like, what is, without suffering, and the place where there's no suffering and no joy. Yes. Yes. He almost said, it was almost said like he was salivating over that experience. Like, did you get the second part of that? Have you ever felt sort of apathetic towards things? Like, it's not this thing that we think where it's just good feelings all the time. Like, but as long as it's like, oh, it's out there. It's somewhere. It's somewhere, and I'm on this journey and path, and just got to make sure enough people agree with it. And like once enough people agree, then it'll be that. Then I can control this into being the right path or the right way. Or if I just get to a point where I'm seen or looked at in a certain way, then it'll be enough. Then I'll be enough. Then what? Then you'll have the same opportunity as you do right now to let go of you being on a journey, and you can start living. And every moment you got that same opportunity. And sometimes there's just things that are informing that experience, but it's still the same. You're still not going somewhere, somewhere else. But it's yeah, the opportunity is always there.
Absolutely. And I just want to give context because I know listeners who haven't necessarily been aware of what's been happening with this specific caller. He has been just pounding the DM section of TikTok for a while. It's just the last couple of days. Again, all of this is in the religion and spirituality channel on our Discord. Not all of it, but at least up to a few days ago. It's a very long thread, and then it just continued after a day's rest, and it became a full-blown conversation that it just wouldn't relent. And it got to the point where I was asking, like, can you please stop messaging me? Absolutely. And then he'd comment publicly on a video, to which I would respond to the comment on the video, and then he would take that as an excuse to message me privately again, to the point where finally he's like, I don't understand your problem. I stop messaging you every time you ask me, not seeing the hilarious part that the every time means that he's continuing to message me. And so it's been a long history, is what I'm saying. It's definitely not that we're discussing what he did here or what he said here on the podcast and going, he's super forceful. There's a whole backstory behind it. So I just wanted to make that very clear, because somebody in the comments section was asking, they're like, didn't seem very forceful. He did, it to some degree, but taken in context, it's been an ongoing thing. This has been very much an ongoing experience in terms of momentum, because it took a lot for him to get worked up to be here on the show. And so we appreciate the fact that he was even able to come on the show and express himself. We do appreciate that. But it was an interesting experience for sure. And I want to say thanks to everybody who was able to comment in there and talk to Justin in the comments section. I know he's on the Discord right now, so feel free to touch base, welcome him to the conversation, because, this is an excellent opportunity to work away at that stubborn belief in belief.
Yeah, and I do stand by my description of him, being forceful, because another word for is assertive, right? When someone is trying to state a belief confidently, when someone's trying to have, to try to have others recognize the authority of what they're saying, you know, forcefulness, assertiveness. You know, forcefulness doesn't always have to be a literal gun to someone's head, or physically forcing someone to do something. You know, there are definitely plenty of instances when you are being very forceful and assertive in a conversation, because you're stating things, you're stating your beliefs as a fact, and you're not leaving room for that belief to be questioned. And so I absolutely stand by my description, the descriptive word that I used for Justin, because I very much embody that mindset for a decade or more. So I absolutely recognize myself in not just what he said, but more so with how he said it, because I recognize the feelings that were driving that particular delivery of the words, right? Because it's never the words, it's always where those words are coming from. And so I absolutely, you know, I recognize myself, and I just don't share the same, I just don't share the same priorities. And that's probably the only difference that I can see in this moment, based on how we both showed up to this conversation, and how it didn't feel like it was, you know, it just didn't feel like he was trying to have a conversation and hear an opposing perspective or hear an opposing view. It just felt like I was the audience for a one-man show, and I was here to see him prove his points and give him the round of applause that is so clearly, you know, matching what he's saying, because he's just here to help us see that, you know, we're holding on to the denial of reality. And thank goodness he's here to tell me that I'm in denial, because what would I do without him? I'd suffer in silence, apparently.
We're all doing that.
Superhero soaring in, saving the day. And like the need, like you, because you're always reflecting your experience. And so like because I've had plenty, I've made lots and lots of videos where I have a lot more of an edge, and there's this pull to like try and convince someone of something. And like you take a step back and you're like, what is my experience like right now? And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with getting, you know, worked up and, you know, a lot of energy built up and all that stuff. But, you know, someone, and as you said, Amanda, like they're not reflecting via words, they're reflecting via what they're showing you, their whole thing, their whole demeanor. And so it's not even about what you do or what you say. It's not even about being one thing or the other. But, you know, if you're trying to convince someone and you're really, really angry and frustrated and almost have this pull and assumption that if you do convince them, there's going to be a pull to that. There's going to be something about that that makes you more, then you're going to keep trying to make it happen and just keep getting hits of, oh, I convinced this person. Oh, I convinced this person. It's like an addictive sort of drug. But I see that we have someone else calling in, and I'm very excited about that.
Oh yeah, it's Marie jumping in. No topic listed whatsoever, just jumping in, as is typical for Marie. It's awesome. It's nice to have you here, Marie. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Look at
Hey.
you with the courage to come on to video. Much appreciated.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is wonderful. Okay, I joined. Like I got home and I was like, oh God, I gotta jump on the call-in show today, just to see what's going on. So I like check in, and boy, did I tune in at just the right time. Woo-wee! Wow, it was good stuff. Thoughts that came up though that I thought was interesting was very much kind of where I was a few years ago. Like I didn't even realize that mentality of what he's saying, because I totally hear him, like this being an illusion, and you know, what we talk about of unity, because there was so much before I even hopped on these calls that I didn't realize that I was holding on to. When, yeah, like holding on to when with that belief, like, so my dad is somebody that definitely introduced me to a lot of like, you know, questioning, and he got really spiritual and stuff. And he got into and I remember bringing this up early when I came on to put a course in miracles. And a lot of what this dude is saying sounds like what my dad will talk about, of like and a lot of it like I understood, because there were components to you know, this world being an illusion. We are not separate, and that we are all pure, like that pure awareness that he was speaking on, that pure, that it is just, so like when I talk about with my dad, that there's this mentality that we are not there now, that there's a separation that is happening, and that it's like that same mentality. It's like that heaven or hell, right? Yeah, you were working toward, am I, is, am I skipping? Okay. Uh, so yeah, working towards that. So I appreciate these conversations, because there was a mentality that I was holding on to of like, well, this is an illusion, and what's true is just oneness, not recognizing that oneness encompasses now as well. Like there is no right. So it's not like oneness is just one, the pure thing that he's talking about, but it's all of it. So it has to look like all of it, right? Like, because that's what oneness is just like, it's not something that isn't like, so even when that was brought up, like, do you believe that or something about like, I think he recognized that it, like, it's all around you, but there's still that sense of, but it's not like really here. It's not actually now. And I just think that's interesting, because I would push to question that, because um yeah, as we saw it being demonstrated, is like when you're holding on to something, and that begins to get questioned, um it all of a sudden there's complete opposite um mentality being displayed based off of what was just previously being said. It's like, oh, sure, we're all one. But now that you're questioning everything that I say and believe in, I don't know. Like I'm gonna start getting go almost feeling like, because he was saying, and this is such stuff my dad says too, like the no guilt, and I believe in that too. Like I believe in letting go of all that shit. I hear you. I hear you. But to say that um just that recognition of like here being separate than what is, or what is reality, um whew, that was a, it's an interesting thing to dive into, and not run away from, because we know what running away, it's running away doesn't work. What are you running away from? Who are you running away from? Nothing. It's you. All of it's you. Which is why it's also easy to laugh and let these conversations go and invite them, which I appreciate that you all do, because it's like it's all you and it's all good. Like, but there is no separation, which means, and it is all one, so that means it's all happening now. That's it. It's all. I don't know. I wanted to hop in because like so much was resonating, and like also just like it was just super interesting. It was like, give me the popcorn.
No, it's been an
Eating
interesting
that shit up.
experience for sure. And it's one that I embrace because again, this is what's happening. All right, let's kind of go through it. But it's that mentality of, you know, we're all one, but I don't have to consider you at all, right? At all. And then when you react to me, that's not unifying. And it's like, well, that's really interesting. And then what I thought was great was the fact that we're all one, but I don't want to discuss this publicly.
It's like everything they were saying and then everything they were doing were contradicting each other, and the investment in yourself is going to distract you from that. And then it's like, so, and the unity being something other than here, then implies that unity is divided from something. And then how could it be unity if it's divided from here? It can't. Like, that's doesn't it it doesn't work, because immediately it's like unity's a divided thing, but that just allows you to keep thinking that it's not here.
That's where, like, if you really can, because I get it. I was really pretty dug deep in that, like, love and light, that's the only thing that exists, like the oneness, it's all is, but there's a lot of resistance then to this whole other aspect that's here. If it isn't, like, if how can it not be? Like, what are we experiencing then? Why are we doing this? What are we doing here? If it's not part of all of it, like, it can't just be. That's
But
so
Marie, I'm not enjoying it.
Oh my gosh, honestly, it's so funny.
Oh my God, I love you, Marie. I'm so glad that you jumped on. It's like all that love and light. Are you going to hold on to that love and light when I slap you across the face? Are you going to hold on to that love and light? And not even like physically, like somebody disagreeing with me back in the day felt like a slap to the face. You don't agree with me? How dare you? You don't recognize my brilliance. You don't recognize that I did all of this work for us. Wink, wink. I did all of this work to build my fucking soapbox to preach from, and we're all holding on to denial and you're holding on to salvation. Can we just talk about the fact that we're all holding? Right? If we're all holding on to denial and you're holding on to salvation, can we just skip the part about focusing on what we're holding on to and just recognize that we're all holding on to something? And that's where we can meet each other on the same grounds. And then it could be, it's not that we're all one and we only talk about things from this macro large perspective, but we actually live it. We actually embody being one with this moment, being one with what is, and not needing to label it, describe it, convince someone, share it. Like, just being here is enough. I don't need to do or undo anything.
Oh my God, totally. And it's funny because with that mentality of, like, because I see it in my dad too, which is like, once you reach this point of, like, this is what I believe and this is what I believe to be true, then it becomes very hard to be open and, like, see and hear other people, which is insane, because if you believe that all of this is one, then you wouldn't be so resistant when you hear from yourself and all the various uh things it will say, because it looks differently, but I just feel like there's separation in that, which is also contradictory. There's a lot of contradictions, which is good to question. It's like, wait a second, this does not add up. So I hope, like, if anything, you just walk away with, like, questioning the beliefs, the mentalities that you hold on to, because all of it, like, just try. What is it like to try it, to not hold on to it? What happens? Guess what? You're here. That's all. Like, and then that's it. And so I just feel like it's important to just, like, let go of it all, because even with the mentality of people thinking they're letting go of stuff, but you still are pushing this mentality, this belief, that means you're still holding on to it too. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry, but that's what was happening. So I just
You're not really sorry.
you know, I really am.
And it just keeps it going. It just keeps it going. Letting go of letting go. letting go of you being something that's letting go of something, or overcoming something, or recognizing things that's now I recognize more than I used to recognize. It's like, nah, you don't have to do that. You don't have to, you don't, because like feeling that and doing those things and responding in that way or needing that is then in response to probably something else that you're doing. But it's like, I did this. It's like when someone believes something and then is like, keep an open mind, about as they're holding on to a belief, and just stay open minded. It's like you're like you're closing your mind, telling everyone else like that act of believing in that thing is closing up that mind. But even, it's like not believing in something isn't a belief, just like the not playing a sport isn't a sport. Like, and there's experience here. It's all here. All we're talking about is just like life without making so many assumptions about it, without believing in something. And it's like this, it's the least mind-blowing thing in the world. It's like just reality. What's happening? And it's like obviously there's a lot that could be perceived here, but it's about as basic as it gets.
Maria, I want to say thank you for jumping in. We really appreciate your perspectives on all this. It's really nice to hear from you. And of course, you're going to be in the Patreon call after this, I hope.
Absolutely. Yes. I appreciate call-in shows. I appreciate Tuesdays in general. So thank you all. I will see you later.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, everyone.
Always great chatting,
Marie,
Marie.
let's give her a big hand in the comments section. One of my favorite parts about the dialogue that happened in the direct message section with this person was, and this is exactly what we're talking about, is just this complete lack of sensitivity to what's happening. Like you're just determined to go through no matter what's said. I was like, okay, like let's just let's talk about this publicly. No, I am a messenger. You are very arrogant. You need to understand all this. I'm like, no, let's just talk about it publicly. Please stop messaging me. Blah, 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 blah. And then finally, he's like, I will stop messaging you if you just tell me to stop. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you to stop. His response was, well, then why do you need to tell me to stop? And that was the immediate follow-up. And it's just like, that's not stopping. That is the opposite of stopping. That is me now having to explain to you why I have the right to tell you to stop. Right? And I don't have to explain that to you, frankly. But that's the point, is that it's being told to you. And there's such a level of need on your part that you don't hear it. And that's the reason that there is such, like, everything Marie just said is absolutely true. And the entire reason that we're hesitant to do any of that is because it means there's no fucking path. Like that's the whole thing. Like we could just be here, but it means that we have to let go of the path. And more importantly, and this is the big thing, what the path meant about us. Justin doesn't want to give up his seeker of truth persona. Right? He doesn't want to give up the, hero's journey out of the underworld, which is rather sad because that's the only way out of the underworld, is to give it up, give up the hero's journey, give up being the hero, stop trying to escape. And what you discover is that the entire underworld you've been trying to escape is caused by your desire to escape. And thus your conflict with the experience you would be having otherwise as reality. A unified reality in motion, as opposed to the story that you tell yourself. That said, we have a couple more people in the queue. I'm very excited about this. We've got like a couple people. So we're gonna get right to it. We're gonna let Ben in. Ben is again a longtime member of the community. I think it's the right Ben. I could be wrong. It just says Ben, anonymous Ben, but even that's rather fitting.
Ben, what's up,
Hey,
man?
what's up, guys? Good to see everyone. I haven't been on a call-in show in a minute. So yeah, I said a different perspective in my description because I tuned in like way after whatever happened that people were talking about. I don't know what happened. Like some guy was trying to be self-validating, I guess. and that's probably seems I will like to go back and check out what the interaction was like though. So but I can resonate with like interacting with people who do hold on to beliefs and want to self-validate. Like for example, I live on a very busy street, and on Saturday, I was just chilling in my apartment, and I heard drums outside of my apartment, and it turned out to be like a free Palestine protest or march that was marching down my street. So I just like looked up and was like seeing everybody. It was a lot of people, and I just started waving to people because I was like, oh hey, people. And then like some guy from the protest was like waving me down, like join us in this fight. And I just kept waving because um it made me think of when you want to be the hero, you're empowering the villain, even though you're like you're trying to disempower it, but you're coming at it from a mentality that kind of spawned the villain to begin with. So you're not really solving anything, even though it's still the same like flavor of I need to be perceived in a certain way, but it's just on the other end of it. And what's happening behind the scenes is unity, is the void like playing chess with itself. So I think it's really like it's really interesting. All of the that protesting part, like, um, and then it even ties. I don't know if you guys heard of like the dude who set himself on fire to protest. So I mean, you can mix in suicidal tendencies with it. He was probably suicidal anyway. But yeah, it just to I can relate to like any event that happened, like because he was holding on to something, and don't don't we all? Even I will say another thing and then pass it is I am looking to like move in my company, like move around different jobs. Like I've been saying, like possibly get a more remote role. Um, and I was talking to someone who kind of specializes in getting people like remote jobs and moving around. And he was saying, first of all, if you get a job at another company, don't quit your current one, get fired because you'll get the severance package. And like immediately I I was like, but that's a bold strategy. I like to be the person who's liked at work. I don't know if I would do that. And then like that just like brought into a new perspective that I do like to be liked at work. And if I were to just stop and eventually get laid off, like yes, I would get the severance, but my ego would take such a big hit. that that really revealed something that I was holding on to. So we're all holding on to everything. I mean, holding on to something, just like you have to keep going through the process to find out what it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, and it's interesting because like you're in situations like that where something comes up and you feel all sorts of things, and so much of the more intense feelings or spots in which you jump into something new and you notice something about yourself, something else that you're holding on to, or a perception or concern or fear or this sort of tendency. It's like there's an opportunity, like you almost, it's harder to notice those things if you don't have more intense feelings. It's like the more intense the feeling, it's less so an indication about you or something that you got to like overcome or let go of, and more just like pay attention to this right now. Like there's something here that is impacting your experience as you go, like it's impacting your moment to moment ability to relax or whatever. And even then, it's still not like, yeah, it's not even like overcome it in order to be able to relax more. It's like let go of this idea that there's some way to do something and therefore be more relaxed. Like something else is going to do it. Some action that I take is going to do it. Something that I do, something that I overcome is going to do it because it's still then sort of putting me on this, from here to here to here in process. But yeah, there's definitely lots of opportunities, especially as you jump into more stuff and do more things that maybe you're not as used to notice more of that stuff. And there's like kind of an excitement to it when you're even of the intensity of the feelings, just because you're like, wow, this is intense right now.
I love that you brought up being like that work, Ben, because it's not just there, it's your whole life. It's just that's one very almost more comfortable of an example to give of wanting to be like that work, but it doesn't stop at work. It's every interaction you have. You want a stranger in the street to like you. You want your friends, you want your family to like you. You want your exes to like you. You want the new girl that you like to like you. You want everybody to like you. There is nobody that you encounter that you don't want to like you. And I feel that as well. But then I also realized that I didn't want to be at the mercy of being liked, because when I showed up authentically as myself, if that didn't resonate with somebody, that wasn't an issue. Like it's just like being liked is just such a it's just one part of that experience. Because for the people that I would say that I not only do I like them, but I love hanging out with them, there are things that they do that I don't like. There are interactions and experiences that I've had with people that I respect and admire and like that I didn't like. And so it's not so black and white, you know and I just don't hold on to it. For the people that I'm closer to, I just don't hold on to the moments that feel unpleasant, or the times where I think that am an unpleasant experience for them. Because I just don't want to be at the mercy of being liked. I'm going to show up how I'm going to show up, and I'm going to consider other people, right? But in my consideration, that doesn't mean that it dictates how I'm going to show up, just because I consider somebody else in the room. And you're not always going to like it, but you don't have to, because I'm not just here to be liked. And I don't want to be at the mercy of you liking me, because you're not going to like me 24/7, and vice versa. I won't like everyone else 24/7. So this desire to like and be liked puts things in a vacuum of the fullness of the experience that we can have, where we're going to fluctuate between liking and not liking each other.
I agree. It's hard to get away from completely, because I think in life you're kind of slowly give less and less fucks the more you live, the older you get. It depends on the person, but generally I think that's how, like, you do care about how you're showing up and how you're perceived, and it's like it plateaus, or it peaks in your like high school, maybe college years, but then after it's like it's a practice to show up authentically, and ask, I mean, and to be yourself, because you're really doing others a disservice by trying to manipulate them into liking you, because it's just it's like it's not a sustainable way to have a full experience, I would say.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The manipulation whole aspect is not something that most people want to look at. That if you're not being yourself, you're trying to push this image. Like there's a manipulation so that you can feel good, so that I can feel good. That's why I subdue myself. That's why I don't fully express myself, is because I want to not feel bad. Because if that happens, then anything could happen. And so there's almost like, it's like, the thing Justin was kind of talking about, like the experience of no joy and no suffering, more so. And just trying to find this point where it's like not expressing myself very much to at least avoid the one side, but miss out on a lot of the other side as well that's there as start to relax a little bit more and just express whatever's there. And as much as it does, play out and process, it's like you can only relax right now. You can only be yourself right now. You can only do any of those things right now. It's just like to the degree that you can. And sometimes being relaxed is just not, getting tense about being tense. And that's you relaxing right now.
This has been a fun conversation. Ben, as always, thank you for jumping in. We appreciate you being here, man. And it's nice to have you on the call-in show. And it's now the Qual-in show, as you know. But it's good to have you here. And hopefully we'll see you on Patreon shortly after.
Yeah, I very very grateful to be here, and I appreciate all of you and love all of you, everyone who's listening. I may join Sophie and Daisy's little community Zoom first, but then I could jump over. So
That's awesome. Say hi to Sophie and Daisy for us over at the Life Unpotted podcast. Anybody who's listening who hasn't checked out that podcast, go check it out. But aside from that, Ben, have an awesome evening, man.
will do. You guys as well. Bye bye.
Say, Ben.
We got a lively call-in show today. We even got more people in the queue. Just want to remind everybody, if you want to jump in the queue, you can do so at dualisticunity.com/live. There is a lineup at the moment. So we're just going to continue on with the next person in the lineup, who is, of course, Levi. Now, Levi has been a member of the community for quite some time. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. And frankly, we're excited to announce that he's going to be offering coaching, or rather just private chats. Not really coaching so much. You don't have to look at it that way. You're not trying to get fixed. It's not fucking therapy. But he's offering to just spend his time with you while you work through your shit in an environment where somebody's willing to hear you and fucking can. Shortly, he will have that service available on the website. So keep an eye out for that. Of course, we'll do an announcement on Patreon and whatnot once it's there. But I'm going to shut the fuck up and pass it over to Levi. Good to see you, buddy.
Hey everyone.
What's up, Levi?
Nice to see you guys. Yeah. Oh man. It's in the middle of the night there, but this this whole conversation has kept me awake so far. So it's been interesting to follow. I mean, it's yeah, I don't know what I want to get into, to be honest, but it is interesting to see these perspectives, and also I've been like face to face with the whole journey and that whole thing just for my own sake lately, or I guess I have been for a long time. But it is interesting because I can really feel like the meaninglessness of just dropping the journey, kind of, because it's like, oh, didn't it matter that I suffered, and didn't it matter that I worked through all this shit for all this time? And yeah, but truth be told, it's like it's when I stopped doing all that I've really started to feel more free. So I've said it before, but like the first retreat I was on in Vermont, it was like, from my perspective, it was like, it was a bit of a weird experience, but like from like where I see like the biggest change was that everything went from something I had to do to just having fun and not being so fucking in my head all the time. That's it. So we just had fun for a whole weekend, and I felt my whole life changed. I felt what it was like to just be myself, whatever that means. Sort of. I guess that's what it felt like. So yeah, not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but yeah.
I like that.
Um,
I like what you're bringing up there, because that's very much the reason that I like to meet the community in person, because while the things I talk about can be helpful, eventually you're just left in that space where it's like, I have no fucking path. What do I do with this? And I've been there for a while. And so all of a sudden you see me fucking just bouncing along the fucking lack of path going, hey, what's up? And you're like, I can do that. Like, I can just chill the fuck out and enjoy this. And it's like, yeah, you can. You know, and it took me forever to just accept that. That was really what it was, right? It was just, this is it. There's nowhere to go. What do you want to do with it? You know, but at first you're like, oh my God. And this is one of the most consistent traps that I find people get into, is that the idea that they can just put down all that shit right now, that is a possibility, immediately makes them look back and go, well, I fucked everything up before here because I could have done it this whole time. So all of that meant nothing. It's like, how the fuck do you think you got here? Right? This wouldn't mean anything if it wasn't for all that shit. Right. And that's what really helps, is the understanding that, you know, it's just part of the process. And that's why I really like Jane Lovinger's steps of ego development, because she really does discuss it as just part of what we go through as conscious fucking beings when our environment isn't keeping us fucking locked down. Right. And that's the whole thing, is just to recognize that. It's like, right. I'm just going to continue growing. And that's going to continue being more and more fulfilling, because it's going to be less and less divisive. Right. But that only ever happens now. And that means you have to let go of the whole path to becoming more unified and less divisive. And so, yeah, after a while, it's just have fun. It's taking care of itself.
And I've definitely found when there is less idea that, something in the past should have been different, or I should have figured this out quicker or sooner, or it meant something about me. If there isn't so much of that, there's not so much this idea that right now there's something I have to do in order to be on this process to like letting more stuff go, or like overcoming more things, instead of just kind of like you were expressing about the Vermont retreat. You were just there, just hanging out, just like playing. Because reality does start to feel a lot more like that. And that's something that if you're convinced, and I know well from experience, like that there's some sort of path that you're on that allows you to see your own journey in a specific way, everyone else's journey in a specific way, it's going to be really, really tough to chill the fuck out and just relax and just be yourself, and like whatever that means. Because there's a journey, there's somewhere else. And like, oh, if I'm feeling something right now, there's going to be a point in which I don't feel that as much anymore. It's like, who's saying that? Who's to say that's not just what you're feeling right now? But as soon as it's like, oh, this shouldn't be, there's the assumption there's something else that's going to happen, and then there's immediately this like fucking trajectory to where I no longer experience these things. I no longer experience the stuff that, reminds me of other experiences, instead of just that being sort of where you're at. It's like, this is just something that you're feeling right now, and it doesn't mean anything about you, and it's what your experience is right now. And so yeah, if you think there's some sort of fucking journey, it's going to be a lot tougher to just chill out and relax and play, but that's where the most growth and learning happens the easiest.
I love when we were at the one of the Vancouver retreats, you guys had recorded an episode and it was like, the step is the path. And I really loved that perspective, because outside of the step that you're on, you there's nothing else that you really see, and you can look at old steps, but that doesn't mean that you were on a path. Those are just old steps, and you can look at the step that you're on now, and in many ways this one step is the entire journey. And so I really love that you guys had described it in that way, because it really resonated when I first heard it. And I love when I think about that now, like, oh my goodness, this step is the whole path. This step is the whole journey, because no matter where I think I'm going, I'm only ever on this step. And so I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. That's an awesome reminder. And also, I don't know if it was yesterday or some other day that I think it was you, Ray, who said that, like, kind of what's happening, what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, that is like I am the process. I'm the one. It's being processed here now. Like, why wouldn't it be happening? Like, let's just say like I exit, whatever, a better place, and shall everyone else do like, I don't know. It's like it's processing through us all. It's like it's not like there's something outside of it. From what I see, we're doing it because we need to experience this shit for some reason. So yeah, I don't know. It just because I've been feeling a lot today and yesterday, and yeah, and it's just it is a very nice perspective actually, because it's like, yeah, of course. Now I'm like, I'm processing, like, this is what I am. This is what I'm here to do. Just feel these things, experience these things, and yeah, I can sit and sulk about it, or I can play around while feeling it. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's not appropriate to just play around. It's not like always like that, but it's like, yeah, it's hmm. And also the ups, right? It's not only the downs. They are, as we've said many times today, they go hand in hand. It's not like if I choose away one part. It's like, because that's very much what my life was before. It was extremely neutral in terms that I rarely laughed, and I rarely cried, to say it like that. And now it's the other way around. I cry all the time. I mean, I'm listening to a song and whatever, and I'm just starting to cry. It's like it's not like I'm sad or anything. It's just it is. Oh, it's a part of just, yeah. And anyway, I guess that's how it is now. So
I love it, man, for sure, because it's just feeling more of your life, of existence. But you can't do that if you're like, ow, it hurts, ow, it hurts. It's like, how are you going to empathize with anything? How are you going to relate to anything? How are you going to communicate with anything? It's such a dualistic perspective that, there's an end to suffering, and that's unity. It's, everything's unity. That's the whole point. Like, it's all one moment. And that's what's kind of funny about the scalability about this, is that everything's one, but that includes each and every moment, right? Everything is a perfect balance, whether you can see it or not. Problem is most of the time we're not really looking because we're too busy caught up in ourselves, right? But what you were saying earlier, I wanted to cover it quickly. I'm not even sure why I am this experience of process, right? And it's because all experiences that can happen, all moments that can happen, are expressed by virtue of their potential. And so each moment, if you were to take it like a movie frame, right? Each moment doesn't make any sense to the experiencer without the perspective of before and an after. And so our experience as process is the experience of us moving through the possible frames that always exist, because it's always one. So it's not that we're moving towards completion. We are completion. We're just experiencing what it is to be completion, but it's such a large, infinite completion, a large, infinite thing, that we have the perspective of process, which is the experience of time. Right? It's fucking insane. It's a lovely gift to be able to move through all the possible moments as your existence and actually feel like it's one story, which is why we make the story.
Ooh, man. Levi, go ahead. If you have any closing words. I know we have someone else in the chat. I don't think we have time to get to them. So yeah, Levi, go ahead if you had a response to that. Otherwise we can.
yeah, I don't know. I was kind of just wanted to wrap up and just say thanks for an awesome chat. But yeah, it's like, oh, the journey, man. It's like, because you see the journey, you see it. It's like, oh yeah, at this point I was like this, and then I, did all this work, and now I'm here. It's like it appears like a journey, I have to say, but then again, you can just be here right now. That's really what I've experienced at the retreats as well. Like, just stop, you know. It's not it's not out there. It's yeah.
But that's what makes the journey stop suffering so much. See, it's so funny because you recognize, oh, right, it's just the perspective of a journey. And the more I take it to be serious, the more it confines me to that perspective that there's a before and an after. I need to get somewhere and somebody I'm becoming and all that stuff. But to recognize that all of that's not the reality, but this is the reality means that you can dip in and out of those stories. You can dip in and out of those illusions without ever feeling trapped by them because you recognize them. You recognize them as a part of what this is. You're not trying to limit the limitless nature of existence down to what you would prefer, right? You're just recognizing, like, right, but that all seems way heavier when I get involved with it. So I'm just going to take responsibility for that, and stop responding in a way where I'm trying to grasp for more control. I'm trying to grasp for more value. Oh, man, it's so nice to have you on the show, man. I really appreciate you coming in today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. All right, see you.
Great chatting as always, Levi. Talk to you soon, man.
As always, love Levi, man, for sure. And again, do keep an eye on the website for Levi, who will be offering private chats to people within the community. I will post that information very shortly. It has been a very busy week. I want to throw that out there right now. The reason is because we got a lot of shit going on. We had that marathon session a couple of weeks back where we raised enough money for a free ticket for somebody. I'm happy to say we're almost at enough for a second ticket for somebody. If you would like to contribute, please go to dualisticunity.com/donate, and that will take you to the GoFundMe page. You will notice that we're already over the limit. That doesn't mean you can't contribute. We're about $450 away from that second ticket. So if you'd like to help out, that's great. Another announcement, and this is very important. Dualistic Unity is going through an expansion. We are planning on kicking this shit into high gear. And as such, we are doing the business thing. We've got a presentation together. We've got not a plan, but let's just say what is the general movement for Dualistic Unity? Where are we going? What's the next thing that's on the agenda? And if all things work out, what would we like to see? And so we're looking for investors in Dualistic Unity LLC. This would be the actual corporation that is the podcast. If you're interested in that, go to the website dualisticunity.com. Under the contact navigation bar, you will see investor interest. Just fill in your information, just give us your name. This is not a commitment to invest. Keep that in mind. This form is just asking you, what do you think you might like to throw in and why? Because that's very important to us. So we are offering this to the community first, and then later on, we're going to look for outside investors if necessary. We're really hoping not to have to do that. That said, do keep in mind, this is an investment. So it's not a donation. You are not supporting the podcast through donating. You are actually investing in a company wherein there is an ROI. There will be a return on your investment over 5 to 7 years. We will talk about that in the investor presentation, which will be coming up in the next few weeks. There is also an option for larger investments to own a portion of Dualistic Unity, to actually have an equity share in the company, a percentage for yourself, meaning that you are a part of the team to a large degree, which means that we're going to reach out to you at least every 6 months and go, let's fucking talk about how things are fucking going. And you're going to have a conversation with us in a more candid way than we do anywhere else, because you're going to be part of the behind the scenes action. Because again, you're investing in us and we want you to know. We take that fucking seriously. We know that this is all going towards a ripple. And we're so invested in that ripple that to have you on board, to have you see where this is going or has the potential to go, and for it to be an expression of the journey that you're on right now, it's fucking exciting. So definitely let us know if you have any interest whatsoever. And if not, keep an eye open, because we'll still have that investor pitch in the near future. And if you know anybody who might be interested, definitely let them know, because this isn't just investing in a podcast. There's a lot of shit that's going on with this. It's going to be a really good presentation, so don't miss that.
Absolutely not something you're going to want to miss, because it is so much more than a podcast. Just expressing ourselves in a lot of different ways. And yeah, I'm excited for the ripples that are coming. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I think we're about at time, but this has been a fucking
Right.
awesome
How about
whale show.
Amanda bring us home today and wrap up the episode?
And here I got comfortable, about to sit back and relax. Not today, but I love it. You know, we pivot, we always pivot, and it's been an amazing chat, and I'm so glad for everybody that could jump in on the comments, on the call-ins, and excited to continue this conversation as it unfolds through us, within us, and everything around us. So thank you so much, everybody, and excited to chat with you soon. Call in again in about 2 weeks, I think. See you soon.
Sure. Bye, everybody.